And one of the things that's often high on the NFL draft list is quarterbacks. No matter what, quarterbacks are a premium in the NFL because it's a quarterback driven league. And you want to win games, you need a quarterback. Take a look at the 2 Super Bowl teams last year. Let's start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. They could have added to the offensive line last year, but instead, they took a look at our quarterback. Joe Burrow has a previous connection with Jamar Chase, and we have 2 other bona fide stars at the wide receiver position. You know what? Forget the offensive line for now. We're going to bring in a wide receiver to help my man Joe Burrow. Guess what? Got some good defense going on. You got a star quarterback. You got a star wide receiver in Jamar Chase. Led them to a Super Bowl. Take a look at what's happened with the Los Angeles Rams. They had Jared Goff, who was a former number 1 overall pick. They replaced him with a better former number 1 overall pick, Matt Stafford. And the difference was, when push came to shove, late in that game, Matt Stafford made big-time plays and big-time moments that led to them being Super Bowl champions. It's a quarterback-driven league. Now, I've heard so much discussion on how weak this 2022 NFL quarterback draft prospect class really is. And I found the reason we consider this class so weak. And I want to dismiss it. Right now, right here, right now, we're less than a week away from the NFL draft. We often get caught looking forward. We're never staying in the moment. And that becomes more and more true the closer you get to the NFL draft. What you can't address this year, you'll address next year. Why look at this draft class when you can look at next year's draft class? And you see 2 quarterbacks that were Heisman candidates last year that have another year of eligibility in the college football realm in Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. And then you compare that with Anthony Richardson of Florida, who, given his injury history, is finally going to get a shot at Florida to be the number 1 guy. Will Levis of Kentucky. A lot of good, talented people. Next year, we thought Spencer Rattler was going to be a number 1 overall pick this year. Things didn't go his way. Now he's in South Carolina with a potential to be a first-round pick again next year. And with looking at next year's draft class with 2 bona fide stars, can't-miss prospects in C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young out of Alabama, there's good reasons that many people, the media, looking forward to next year's draft class. But let's not preclude what's happening this year in the draft class, because you have guys like Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter, Sam Howell. I'll even throw Carson Strong in there as a 6th option. While none of these guys scream Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, the list goes on and on for number 1 overall picks, bona fide quarterback stars. That doesn't preclude them from being the weakest draft class. They're not the weakest draft class when it comes to quarterbacks. Let's take a look at last year's draft class. We talked about Trevor Lawrence being the bona fide number 1 guy. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Kyle Trask. You taking that group of guys, or Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter, Sam Howell? The answer is you're taking this year's draft class. What does Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, and Kyle Trask have that those quarterbacks that's this year don't have? I'll tell you what these quarterbacks have that last year's quarterbacks don't have: multiple good seasons in college football. Multiple seasons where they were ranked highly. They were highly touted. Zach Wilson appeared out of nowhere. He had one great year against lesser competition, and he became the second overall pick. Kenny Pickett has strung together multiple good years and then had a breakout year this year. Malik Willis is a Division I type of quarterback that left a premium Power 5 school to get a spot with Liberty. Liberty was clearly above and beyond the best player on the field. And he had no receiver over the size of 5'10", no talent. And look what he was able to do with Liberty. Matt Corral has stringed together multiple very good seasons in college. Desmond Ritter became from an athlete playing quarterback to a quarterback that happens to be an athlete. Sam Howell was projected to be the number 1 overall pick. Do you really want to know what happened to him? He lost his 3 best wide receivers and 2 best running backs last year and still came back to college. You know, his numbers were gaudy and ugly this year. You know why? Because of that reason. Because he didn't have Javonte Williams. You know, the studs that are now playing at running back for the New York Jets and for the Denver Broncos. And when it comes to fantasy football, and I'm not basing everything on fantasy football, but everybody is looking at Denver's backfield right now and saying, man, we got to take that guy high in my fantasy football draft. You know why? Because he's a skilled talent. Sam Howell lost his 2 best running backs and 3 top wide receivers, and you expected him to succeed? That's not how this works. Name a young quarterback that loses so much that succeeds at a college level. It doesn't happen very often. Now, we just compared 2 draft classes. Let's take a look at the last couple of draft classes. 2020. That's the anomaly here. Not this draft class, 2020, where you had Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, who, let's see, we have 4 starters, and Jordan Love, who's sitting behind one of the best NFL quarterbacks of all time. Like, that is the anomaly right there, because Joe Burrow is a bona fide star. Tua Tagovailoa has shown flashes and now is finally getting an offensive line and weapons to help him take that next step. Justin Herbert is a bona fide star just like Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts has shown flashes. Now, will he be a franchise-altering quarterback? That remains to be seen. But he has at least shown the ability to be a high-end backup, if not a fringe NFL starter. Let's go to 2019. Kyler Murray. We all know Kyler Murray, the number 1 overall pick with the Arizona Cardinals, who got placed in a perfect situation, an air raid attack with a young college coach that the NFL will eventually catch up to his offense. Daniel Jones. We all know how that's going. Dwayne Haskins, RIP. We know how that went. Drew Lock. Now on his second team. He gets to start for the Seattle Seahawks. Guess what the Seahawks have? I'll tell you what they don't have. Talent. And Drew Lock's got to be put in that situation as his second opportunity to potentially be the guy. And not only is it a second opportunity, it's his last opportunity to show he's the guy. Let's go to 2018. Baker Mayfield, the number 1 overall pick. The Browns wanted to move on from this guy, whether they got Deshaun Watson or not. Sam Darnold, struggling to find his place with the Carolina Panthers in his second opportunity. Josh Allen, MVP candidate. Josh Rosen. Is he even in the league anymore? I'll give you the answer. Yes, he's been on the 49ers team as a third stringer. Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson won an MVP. people dismissed the Ravens for drafting him 32nd overall that year. Because Lamar Jackson, quote unquote, isn't a quarterback. So let's not even count him in 2018 because a lot of you wanted to dismiss him. 2017, Mitchell Trubisky, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Deshaun Kaiser, Davis Webb, C.J. Beathard. Of all those names, you have Patrick Mahomes, and let's see what Deshaun Watson can be after a year off. 2016, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Paxton Lynch, Christian Hackenberg, Jacoby Brissett. Any of those names ringing a bell? Oh, yeah, we'll throw in Dak Prescott, who was a 4th-round pick. 2015, and I'll stop at 2014, I promise. 2015, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Garrett Grayson, Sean Mannion, Bryce Petty, Brett Hundley, Trevor Siemian. Any of those names ringing a bell for you? But yet we continue to call Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter, Sam Howell a weak draft class. Just because they don't have a Trevor Lawrence. Just because they don't have a Kyler Murray or a Joe Burrow or a Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes was barely a top 10 pick. The only reason he went 10 overall is because Andy Reid saw the raw talent in him and moved up in the draft to select him. Let's go to 2014, my last draft class. You can check out the rest because I'm telling you, when you compare it night and day, you're lucky to get 1, maybe 2 good quarterbacks out of each draft class. But yet we want to pick on Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter, and Sam Howell. Just because you want to look forward to 2 potential bona fide stars in C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young does not make this class weaker. Just because they don't have Trevor Lawrence, just because they don't have Kyler Murray, doesn't make them a weak draft class. Look at 2014. Blake Bortles, Johnny Manziel, Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas plays tight end now. Tom Savage, Aaron Murray, A.J. McCarron, Zach Mettenberger. Any of these names ringing for you? Blake Bortles, career backup. Johnny Manziel, fan-controlled football league. Teddy Bridgewater is exactly what his last name says. Bridge. He's a bridge quarterback. Derek Carr. He's had his years. I think he's very talented. I think he's a top 15 quarterback. But even he went in the second round. Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, you can point to the win percentage. But there's a reason the 49ers traded up to get an unknown guy in Trey Lance when they had a Jimmy Garoppolo that wins 60% of his games. The point being, the geekiness in me is telling you right now, stop looking at next year's draft class. Because unless you are the Seahawks, the Eagles, the Texans, the Lions, or the Dolphins, who all have potential question marks at the quarterback position, good luck getting either C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, because each of those teams I just mentioned have 2 first-round picks, which is one of the reasons that I look at the Giants and I hear all that great talk about Daniel Jones and how he could be the answer. And I beg them, I plead them to trade one of their first-round picks to make sure that next year they get a first-round pick. Because if they ultimately realize Daniel Jones is not the answer, in order to get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, you're going to have made maneuvers this year to put yourself in a situation. Unless Daniel Jones has been embarrassingly bad and you end up with a top 3 draft pick. Unless that happens, the Giants are in no need, no way, no how in a situation to draft C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. So I plead, I beg with the Giants to trade one of their first rounds to set themselves up for next year, unless they truly 100% buy into Daniel Jones. And if that is the case, why have you not picked up his 5th-year option? Yes, we went around the world and came back on this NFL draft class, especially the quarterback position. Just so upsetting that you want to call this draft class weak. I love the talent that Malik Willis has. He reminds me of Josh Allen, that guy that didn't have much around him in college, that was clearly abundantly one of the best players on the field every time he played an opponent. He just needs the tender love and care and the right organization around him to buy into him, to help build him up, and he can be a bona fide starting quarterback. Kenny Pickett is a very solid starter in this league. Matt Corral in the right position, the RPO type of style that was ran at Ole Miss, if you put him in a situation like that to succeed, I think he can be a starter in this league. He can be a Derek Carr, a more athletic Derek Carr. I truly believe that. And then Desmond Ritter, I'm going to like him to Jalen Hurts because he has his moments. He has all the intangibles that you hope and wish for in an NFL quarterback, but I'm not quite sure if Desmond Ritter can put it all together. And then Sam Howell. Sam Howell can be that Derek Carr, Dak Prescott type of guy. That you put the right pieces around him, he can win. You can win with him. He can be a Baker Mayfield, not drafted number 1 overall. And that's just me stating what I believe of this draft class. Now, do I think CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are two of the best prospects in one draft class in quite a while? I do. But that doesn't preclude me from looking at these quarterbacks this year and seeing the talent that they have there. But I am often reminded it's not just about the talent you have, it's about the situation you land in. And with these top 5 quarterbacks, with the right situations, with the right organizations that buy into them and believe into them and build around them, I think each have their own opportunity to be successful.